Field trip day, yay, yay! Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Round in the Corners. In this episode we're on location in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin at the Cornerstone Sports Pub and Eatery, where we're going to attend the Lake Country Sports Card Show upstairs. We're here to ask the experts some questions related to some topics in the industry, and many of those questions were developed directly from you, the viewers, so thank you for your contributions. While it's a frigid February outside here, inside the action is hot and heavy. So let's go upstairs, mask up, and figure out what's going on. All right, I'm here with Brad, and I just want to ask Brad a few questions. Brad, how long have you been in the industry, and how did you get your start?
I've been in the industry about 32 years, and I got my start just as a young man that was invigorated about ripping sports cards, and my parents obliged and bought me some packs, and that's where the monster began.
Great question. I'm actually a newcomer, so I've been in the industry about 18 months now, and I guess I was drawn to the industry a little bit by having time on my hands, like a lot of us did here with COVID, but before you and I got on here, we were talking about fantasy football, so my buddies told me it's a great way to get involved in this industry by applying some of my fantasy football knowledge to card collecting, so here I am.
Terrence, how long have you been in the industry? How did you get your start?
Since 1985. I used to collect Doc Gooden rookies and sell them to the local card shop, and then ever since then I've been hooked.
I think like a lot of people, I collected cards when I was young, and then when I got a little bit older, about probably two years ago now, decided to try setting up at a show, just put out stuff that was part of my personal collection. And then it's grown from just some random football cards that I collected to I'm mostly baseball and basketball now, but I had to quit my factory job because of a disability I have, and I decided to try to give this a go full time, and it's been going pretty well so far.
All right, I'm here with Rory, and Rory, how long have you been in the industry, and how did you get your start?
So I've been collecting since I was a kid. I began running Brewtown Trading at the end of 2018, so that's been my primary job. I've been a manager at Brewtown Trading since the end of 2018, and getting your start, man, it's always as a little kid. You know, it's collecting Emmitt Smith and Brett Favre and Jerry Rice and Dan Marino as a kid. I was always solely a football kid. Now looking at the price of the booming market right now, you know, I really wish that I wasn't. I wish I was a basketball collector too, but it is what it is. So that was always my start. It was just, you know, just collecting as a kid, and you know, it evolved. I left a professional business-to-business sales job and began running the card shop for a friend of mine.
How do you get your information? Because information is key on knowing what to invest in. How do you get your information?
Well, you always got to keep your ears open. So like a multitude of facets, absolutely, like online sources, chat logs, Facebook groups, like Twitter, you know, and then there's all those YouTube personalities as well that like have their input, and you take that with a grain of salt and try and compute that into the bigger model.
From Facebook, a lot of friends who are in the industry. I talk to young people and old people, because everyone has a different view on what the hobby is. I also got to do a lot of network, and then I research on eBay.
How do you get your information on cards, news in the hobby, things like that?
I watch a lot of YouTube. I listen to a lot of different people. The way I look at it, I may not agree completely with anyone, but I feel I can glean a little bit of information from each person and use that to make better decisions.
The best way I get information on cards is from my friends. So having a strong community, a network of friends. Many of the vendors here today are some of my friends too. eBay's a great source for learning about what's sold and what's on the market. And there's a whole host of new apps for our phones that really help us learn information about cards too. And Roto World's a great way to learn information about players too.
Yeah, true. I've seen that. So what do you do to get information on who to invest in, who to buy?
It's kind of your own analytics, right? Like you can always say like, oh, you know, so-and-so says buy Luka, so-and-so says buy Zion, you know, oh, this guy's a sleeper. But really, you got to kind of do your own homework. If you just follow everybody else's trends, you can miss out on a lot of money for yourself. Chances are if someone's talking about something, a lot of times there's a reason behind it. And you're seeing that more and more with more social media influence currently in the hobby.
Do you have an opinion on what might be a better opportunity, like graded cards that are slabbed up versus raw cards?
Yeah, unfortunately, you can see where the market's going with the cards. So, like, unfortunately, eBay buys are incredibly more leery because those cards have generally already been looked over to be graded. Just because of the profitability and the return on your investment from a raw card, the grading fee, and then what that becomes after the fact.
Do you have an opinion on, like, graded cards versus raw cards?
Well, it's kind of like you have to go with the trends, and grading is really big right now. I personally don't believe it's worth paying quadruple for the problem. However, it is what it is, and I buy them and I sell them, so I can't be a hypocrite. But nowadays, you want to make sure your card is in great condition, so grading's the only way to figure that out.
Do you have any tips for beginning investors? Because myself, I'm kind of a beginner to the hobby, the industry. What could you share with beginners as they get their feet wet in this?
That's a great question. As an entrepreneur and a businessman before cards, two important things you have to have as a businessman is a budget and a business plan. So I'm really big on a mini business plan for a new collector. Just stating your mission statement and some of your objectives for what you'd like to collect and why you'd like to collect really helps you focus your time and energy, because this is a world that's really pretty big, and having a focus for your money and your time is important.
I almost tell the same thing to the old guys. Bob Dylan said it 30 years ago. You better keep up or get out of the way because times they are changing. So unfortunately, you got to keep your ears open, and it's a constantly moving process. So there is no windfall to be successful in the sports card industry.
Do you have any tips for those that are getting into the hobby, the industry?
My biggest advice would be to invest in something you enjoy, because the market, I don't think, is going to keep going in this upward climb. At some point, it's going to stop and go down a little bit. And if it does, at least you got stuff that you enjoy.
For investors, stick with the big guys: Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, Giannis. You know, the guys that are solid. Have fun. I mean, like, I invest too a little bit, but I keep it to the stuff that I like. But if you want to just solid where your money's not going to dip, you want to keep it to the big guys.
The GOATs, all right.
Buy what you like. As an investment, graded cards are always a safer investment, right? But at the end of the day, if the market crashes and you're left holding a whole bunch of stuff that you don't like, you're not going to have as much enjoyment out of it. If you're left holding a bunch of cards that you enjoy, that brings you joy to look at, you're going to have a better time.
Good point. Are you involved in any kind of online markets like ComC or StarStock?
I send cards to ComC, so I have stuff that come in, like little cheap stuff. I do a lot of Facebook, I don't really do eBay. I do most of my stuff at trade shows, but I do a lot of Facebook.
Are you involved in any online markets like ComC or StarStock, or are you mostly doing your business at shows and like eBay?
So eBay I'm even leery of still using just because of the market volatility. They've got too much time to return said product. So if that player falls off and that market changes, they're able to return that, get their investment back, and you're stuck holding the bag. So like there are a lot of facets that are good about like resell and marketability, like slab stocks and all that stuff. But I think you have to take it all with a grain of salt, to be honest. I don't think there is one that is more important than the others.
Not StarStock. We do the shop has a ComC. We use ComC frequently. The one that I would say right now is budding and the strongest for a lot of collectors that they don't know about is a site called myslabs.com. It's a site for graded cards only, buying and selling of graded cards. Very good prices, very seller friendly as well. So I would say MySlabs is probably one of your better resources for buying and selling graded cards at fair prices.
So with the hobby booming right now, are you leery of this being like a bubble situation where there might be an impending crash coming?
I think that the amount of money that's involved and the big money that's involved won't let their investment be divested. They won't let it be diluted. Like, the one thing that I always revert back to is have you ever seen a Mickey Mantle card sell for less than it did before? The answer is no. I think that that's just a market base that we have to look at in general right now. There's way too much new money for it to go back to where it was right now. So, sure, there will always be an ebb and a flow and a market adjustment, but that time frame I feel will be years, not months.
No, and here's why. When the crash happened in 2008, the hobby was driven by 40, 50-year-olds with houses and cars. Most of the people in the hobby now are 19 to 25, and they could care less about a market crash. They're young, they have money, they're making money. And I think now, because of the crash, the recent market crash, people are trying to want to control their money, so they're investing in stuff that they can watch on a daily basis. And so I don't see it dropping. I mean, if it's gonna, I think for the next 3 or 4 years, it's gonna be solid. That's my opinion.
Are you afraid of like a bubble situation where there might be a crash on the horizon?
Bubble situation, perhaps, but crash, no. So right now there's so many new people coming into the hobby that inevitably it had to go only one direction. So we might see a level off. I wouldn't call it a bubble, so people talked about cryptocurrency in the bubble probably in like 2017 and 18 when Bitcoin hit 20,000 and then dropped immediately down to 11. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin's 50,000 now, and all you had to do was wait it out a little bit. So at the end, I really don't think there's going to be a bubble. I think you're going to see, with all the new investors coming in, that there's only one way the market could go, which was up. So I think we're going to, you might see a level off, but I don't think you're going to see a burst and a fall.
Great question. So as a businessman, I do kind of want to think about where I put my time and my money and maybe make a couple dollars off it too. So I guess my feeling is I want to keep my inventory small. I'm a new collector, not a vintage collector, and I do worry a little bit about the new card market relative to the vintage market. And a lot of collectors say, vintage won't drop, it's less risk, and it's a stronger market to be in. But my passion is really recent news and recent players, so that's where I'm going to stay. But I am going to keep my inventory low, so in case there is a crash, I don't get stuck with too many hot potatoes.
Yeah, holding the bag or something like that.
You bet.
Is there anybody that you follow on social media or YouTube kind of stay connected to a community?
Like Christo has a good one. He covers like all of the top eBay sales for that week. And also like Jeff from Sports Card Investor, he's a good source just to listen to. Obviously, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. He hasn't been in the business all that long either, so he's just looking at pure ROI. So at a business per model, you buy at a certain price and you sell at a certain price. So if that's what we're doing, then I would think that his model is correct. But if you're collecting, I think that you've got to reach a little bit farther out that circle.
Is there anybody that you follow in particular, like in social media or maybe on YouTube, build a community?
Not necessarily. I mean, I know they're like the Gary V's and those guys, but quite honestly, I think they're kind of like, well, I'll just say it, market manipulation. You buy 800 of a card and you say it's great, and then we all follow suit. Gary V knows his business. Kuntz knows his business, but most of the guys who kind of do the buying and trading and the card show guys, they have their thumb on the hobby and they know what things. So I pretty much follow just the trends of what's selling. Yeah.
Is there anybody that you follow on social media or YouTube to kind of be part of a community?
So there's a lot of good follows in the hobby. I'm a big fan of Slab Stocks. They're a group of friends, a group of guys that are into cards. I mean, you're always available to see. There's so many people out there right now. People love Gary V. People hate Gary V. Like he's a fun follow at least. Yeah, he's very polarizing. Same with the guy Vegas Dave. Obviously, everyone knows him. But I mean, I don't really follow any of them, to be honest with you. We were aware of them. So I would say follows, not really. Like, I like to follow people who make the hobby enjoyable. So there's a guy, his name's Kentucky Basketball Cards on Instagram, Jimmy Mahan. Like, if you want to watch a guy collect cards and love every minute of it and get absolutely breathtaking cards, follow Kentucky Basketball Cards on Instagram.
What are your thoughts on the retail issue with product being sold out almost immediately, people waiting out stores for the product to come in? Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's a perfect storm. It was almost inevitable, right? Like supply and demand. They printed 1 million cards. Well, 1,000,001 are looking for them. So you've got people that are hawking for those products, right? So it would be in any industry. It was lumber, it was drywall, it was all that stuff at different times of this last year. Unfortunately, sports cards are now just making headlines about it.
I mean, I think you're seeing some retailers limit it now, right? One per person, and then you got to get back in line and everything else. But again, it's inevitable, right? The companies can combat that by raising their retail prices to basically what market is, right? Like, if all of a sudden Walmart and Target were at $40 a blaster, it would slow everything down. Right now, it's kind of the same situation where we saw in shoes, and a lot of these people did come from shoes as well, where with the limited stock, all you can really do is buy them and resell them. Like, I have friends that are, say out in the boonies, right, where you don't have a local card shop, like, in the Milwaukee area, we have 3-4 of them, where you don't have that ability to walk in and buy a hobby box somewhere, where they literally thrived off retail and online ordering. But unfortunately, right now with the, the retail boom, again, it's just because of the sheer number of people and the would you say, supply and demand economics of the hobby. So, I mean, I don't have an issue with it. I think it would help if we had different pricing at the retail level, if there was some adaptation there by Panini and Topps to raise the retail pricing. I mean, unfortunately, yes, it sounds like, business, it is, you have to raise it to meet supply and demand. But I mean, and that'll stop that, right? Like, that'll stop everything else from happening. That'll stop the retail buyouts, et cetera, et cetera.
Are there any trends that you might see on the horizon, like with NBA Top Shot being a very, fringe type of thing? Do you see anything else that might be on the horizon?
80s vintage and vintage. I mean, even the young people now are starting to get into vintage collecting. So, and I think that people are starting to jump on even the cheaper LeBrons and Kobe's. Those are a big thing because they're solid. And those are, again, back to the GOATs. The GOAT theory. Yes, sir.
Is there anything that you collect personally that would never make your glass case here? It's more of a coffin card?
Tons. There are tons, man. Like I said, I've been doing this since I was a kid, so there's a lot of cards that I own that someone could offer me double market value and I'd never get rid of them. So again, it's the same thing, right? Collecting versus, sheerly being in it for the business of it. Like, I've been a collector my whole life. I've only been in the business of it for 2.5 years, right? So there's plenty of cards, and actually I'm buying more now that are going to be coffin cards than I ever have. Strictly because those are cards that I really don't care if the values go up or down on, right? Like, for instance, like I just bought Aaron Rodgers Exquisite Dual Patch Auto Rookie. That's one of my cards. That's literally a bucket list card for me. So I finally got it this year. I paid more than I would have if I would have bought it a year ago, but at the end of the day, it's never going to go anywhere.
I collect rare Celtics cards. I'm a Celtics fan. Anything inscriptions. I love anything like Kobe Bryant that says Black Mamba. I don't have one. I want one. But if it says Elton Brand, #1 draft pick, or Skip to Malou, right for Alston, I love those kind of things. So those I don't sell. That's kind of my enjoyment because I'm a big basketball guy, so I love people with nicknames.
Is there anything special that you collect that would never make it to your glass case here? Something that's considered like a coffin card?
Probably not. When I first started, I collected a lot of vintage football cards, and I made the decision I either want to do this full time or collect cards. So I ended up selling the collection I had so I could keep going. So the way I look at it, everything has a price. There may be some stuff I'm less likely to get rid of, but if someone came with the right number, I would sell it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing your insight with my audience here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right, well, I appreciate your time and all your answers to my audience out there. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, Roy, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate your insight.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, that is a wrap. I just want to thank all my guests for joining me today, sharing their insight. Hopefully you, the viewers, got some key takeaways to help you in your collecting and investing. I know I sure did. This is Darin signing off for Rounding the Corners. We'll see you around for the next one.